Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast presented by Saint Church. My name is Caleb, and today we're going to be diving on in to Genesis chapter 9. Now, really quick, every day we're uploading episodes where we are reading a chapter of the Bible, looking at the context it's written in, and seeing what it has to say for us today. We upload those on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Hey, if you end up enjoying this, make sure to subscribe, maybe even follow the podcast over on Apple and Spotify. But with that being said, you guys, our hope, just dive into the context, see what it's saying for us today. So we're going to do just that right now by diving in. Genesis chapter 9, starting in verse 1, it says this: Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall on all the beasts of the earth and on all the birds in the sky, on every creature that moves along the ground and on all the fish in the sea. They are given into your hands. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. But you must not eat meat that has lifeblood still in it. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. It will demand an accounting from every animal and from each human being too. I will demand an accounting for the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. As for you, be fruitful and increase in number, multiply on the earth and increase upon it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all those that came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth, I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind on the earth. So God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant I've established between me and all life on earth. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These were the three sons of Noah, and from them came the people who were scattered over the whole earth. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay under cover inside the tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked in backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father naked. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers. He also said, Praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be the slave of Japheth. After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. Noah lived a total of 950 years, and then he died. And that's the close of Genesis chapter 9. Now, in this chapter, we see two important things take place that matter for us to understand in the close of this flood narrative. Now, once again, I would say that we are still in a section of Genesis where what matters most is seeing what the heart of God is, and ultimately what the fickleness of humanity is. So let's look at this really quick. When we look at Genesis chapter 9 and we look at verse 1 through verse 17, we see God reinstituting some things. First, we see God give Noah and his sons the same decree that he gave to Adam and Eve, to be fruitful and multiply. So what we have seen is in Genesis 1 through 3, we see that God went from hovering above the waters himself to having then formed order out of it, to then create over a number of days all of the things, and then giving humanity dominion and authority over the creation in partnership with God as we have been made in his image. So now in chapter 9, after we have seen God take humanity and his creation over the surface of the waters, and now he has brought them forth out of those waters, we now see that humanity once again is called to go and have dominion, but now also with a new instruction when it comes to lifeblood and this sort of a thing. But also then we see that God is giving an order for humanity to remember that they are made in the image of God. That he says in verse 6, whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed, for in the image of God has God made mankind. So God once again then, just as he did in Genesis 1 through 3, he established the importance of us being made in the image of God. He looks once again, he reestablishes this. And he says, go out and multiply, have children, all these things. Now, finally, we get to see something that matters. We see this moment of the rainbow. If you've noticed kids' versions of the Noah story and the flood story, you see the rainbow always present within it. Now, really quick, what's God showing here? It says that he puts his bow into the sky. Really quick, if we want to imagine this, again, through what would have been an old custom, let's look at what a bow really is. What is it? It's a bow. It's God's bow and arrow. Like, I know you might say, what the heck? What's this mean? No. That God looks and he says that a weapon that could have been pointed at humanity, God has now looked and he has said, I will now have this pointed at myself. I will have this to where I remember that I am not going to use the authority, the power that I could exert over this, that God is not saying he is now weaker, but he is looking and saying, I will, based off relationship, choose to not do once again what I am capable of. What are we seeing here? We are seeing a moment of God who is sovereign, God who is all powerful, God who is all capable, God who can do whatever he wants. He looks and he says to humanity that he will limit himself. It's a crazy moment. That he is saying he won't do something again. Why? Because he has chosen to do relationship and to do life with humanity, even though we are imperfect, even though we have our problems. Oh my goodness. Even though we have all of our issues, he says never again will he do this to us. And so in this moment, I want us to be able to remember that maybe people have looked before and they've said, well, if God's all powerful, why doesn't he just do this, this, or this? Well, it's because he has chosen to do life with the people who are imperfect, who don't have everything all together, who don't do everything right. And so he has said, I will honor the relationship that has been put into place. So again, when we read Genesis, and really it's going to be about 1 through 11, 1 through 12, we are seeing more of God's heart put on display. Why? Because even back then and even today, people ask, why wouldn't God do something? Well, it's because God has chosen to partner with us. That's what we see out of Genesis through chapter 9. The most important thing is the heart of God, not how did the flood work. Can I just tell you that? It's not. It's not how did it work, what happened, how did dinosaurs play. No. That's not the most important part of the flood story. The most important part of the flood story is a God who has every powerful right to enact judgment and justice in the most grave of ways, looked and said, I'm going to do life with you guys, and I'm not going to do this ever again. And even though you've seen that I could, and now that you know that I can, I'm just going to let you know I'm not going to do it. That's an incredible God. That is a God that is merciful, that chooses to look and say that he will do life with us, and he's now shown that he really is, even though we're bad. And what do we see happen right after this? We see that humanity is still pretty twisted, still pretty bad. There's only one hero in Scripture. His name is Jesus. There are no figures that are perfect. What do we see with Noah? We see that Noah goes after this. Now, this is verses 18 through the end of the chapter. It's this weird depiction of Noah having this encounter with his sons. Okay, so let's lean into this really quick, and I just want to say it is going to seem a little odd. So let's look at this. Noah goes, he plants a vineyard, he ends up drinking from it, he gets drunk. In his drunkenness, Noah lays naked. And as Noah lays naked, now if you read just the first sentence, you would look and you would say, okay, what's going on? It says, when he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay undercover inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. Okay, really quick. Verse 24, when Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him. Okay, so there's something that matters here. And there's a little bit of cultural understanding. And if you want to view this differently than me, you can. But again, there's people that point to this as a valid way to understand what the author's trying to point to. You see, after this moment, we see that his two brothers then bring in Japheth and Shem. They bring in a garment on their shoulders so they would not see their father's nakedness, but also so they would not see what had happened. The presumption is that in this moment of vulnerability for Noah, that because, again, it specifies what he had done to him, is that Ham had gone in and in some way had abused his father. That, again, you might say, Caleb, I don't really see that right there. Again, it's insinuated based off what the text is saying and based off of what then the reactions were, that this was what took place, that something beyond just a mocking or a pointing or weird moment, that there was a moment of attack or disgrace. Something took place where it says, hey, look, there's some grave consequences for what happened here, and it was not good. And so we then see that a curse is laid not just upon Ham, but upon Canaan, and then also a blessing upon the other two sons for what they did. And ultimately, then what do we see? We see that Noah dies. Now, who is the son of Ham? It's Canaan. What's Canaan become referenced to later on? The land of Canaan, the land that the Israelites would end up trying to pursue after, and all these different things that they would end up having be the promised land. And so what do we see within this? Is they would go into a land with people who they have to drive out because they point them away from God. What do we see? That Noah, from this moment, as he enacts a curse upon Canaan, would lead to a people who were cursed that would become the crux of the disdain and the trouble for the Israelites later on. Now, I want to point out two quick things. One, Noah in his drunkenness is vulnerable, all these things. It does not at all justify what then happens from his son. Yet also we see that Noah in the aftermath, as he goes and he chooses to place a curse, doesn't say that God did it, says that Noah did it, as he then curses Canaan, what does it then bring about later on? It brings about grief for the people of Israel, for God's people that he was going to move and work through his descendants. So what happens when Noah chooses to act rashly and just like based off of his own emotional reaction? Well, we see that it causes problems down the line. So really fast for us today, and I want to make sure to say if you have any questions, comment them down below. But today, what do we see here? We see that Noah, yes, a bad thing takes place, a terrible thing takes place, not a good thing in any way. Yet Noah, in his rash decision afterwards, creates problems down the line because he did not choose to react the way that even God chose to for humanity, in saying that he would not react in wrath towards us, but Noah does. And Canaan and the land of Canaan and the people that would inhabit that area as a representation of him later on, that curse would end up creating grief and problems and struggles for what God was pushing his people towards later on. And so with that being said, you guys, again, this is a lot, and that might be something you hadn't thought of before. So I want to make sure to, again, just say, if you got any questions, comment them down below. Let's be people who are willing to understand what God has done, that God has extended us immense grace, immense opportunity. And so we must seek to do our best to do the same in whatever way we can, making sure that, yes, we are in safe positions and all of that, but also we are having the opportunity to point people closer to God and what he has for them, and remembering in gratitude all the things that God has for us. So with that being said, you guys, thanks for jumping on today. Thank you guys for being here. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video. If you're on Spotify or Apple, make sure to follow along. But with that being said, I'm glad you were here. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, because we're taking time to study the Word of God every single day.